The new government, which assumed office barely a month ago, inherited an economy in deep crisis. The balance of payments situation is precarious. International confidence in our economy was strong until November 1989, when our party was in office. However, due to the combined impact of political instability witnessed thereafter, the accentuation of fiscal imbalances and the Gulf crisis, there was a great weakening of international confidence. There has been a sharp decline in capital inflows through commercial borrowing and non-resident deposits. As a result, despite large borrowings from the International Monetary Fund in July 1990 and January 1991, there was a sharp reduction in our foreign exchange reserves. We have been at the edge of a precipice since December 1990 and more so since April 1991. The foreign exchange crisis constitutes a serious threat to the sustainability of growth process and orderly implementation of our development programs. Due to the combination of unfavorable internal and external factors, the inflationary pressure on the price level have increased very substantially since mid-1990. The people of India have to face double-digit inflation, which hurts most the poorer sections of our society. In sum, the crisis in the economy is both acute and deep. We have not experienced anything similar in the history of independent India. The origins of the problem are directly traceable to large and persistent macroeconomic imbalances and the low productivity of investment, in particular the poor rates of return on past investments. There has been an unsustainable increase in government expenditure. Budgetary subsidies with questionable social and economic impact have been allowed to grow to an alarming extent. The tax system still has many loopholes. It lacks transparency so that it is not easy to assess the social and economic impact of various concessions built into its structure. The public sector has not been managed in a manner so as to generate large investable surpluses. The excessive and often indiscriminate protection provided to industry has weakened the incentive to develop a vibrant export sector. It has also accentuated disparities in income and wealth. It has worked to the disadvantage of the rural economy. The increasing difference between the income and expenditure of the government has led to a widening of the gap between the income and expenditure of the economy as a whole. This is reflected in growing current account deficits in the balance of payments. The crisis of the fiscal system is a cause for serious concern. The fiscal deficit of the central government, which measures the difference between revenue, receipts and total expenditure, is estimated at more than 8% of GDP in 1990-91, as compared with 6% at the beginning of the 1980s and 4% in the mid-1970s. This fiscal deficit had to be met by borrowing. As a result, internal public debt of the central government has accumulated to about 55% of gross domestic product (GDP). The burden of servicing this debt has now become onerous. Interest payments alone are about 4% of GDP and constitute almost 20% of the total expenditure of the central government. Without decisive action now, the situation will move beyond the possibility of corrective action. The balance of payments situation is most difficult. The current account deficit, which was about 2% of GDP for several years, is estimated to be more than 2.5% of GDP in 1990-91. These persistent deficits, which were inevitably financed by borrowings from abroad, have led to a continuous increase in external debt, which, including non-resident Indian NRI deposits, is estimated at 23% of GDP at the end of 1990-91.